Good morning, everybody, and thanks so much for joining us today on a Trio Talk. It's been a while since we've had one, and we've had a lot of requests for them, and we actually put out a quick poll to see what you guys want to talk about. So one of the main topics we're going to talk about today is how to go ahead and write a contract. And we have other things to go ahead and cover as well. And remember, if you have questions, go ahead and put them wherever you're coming from. If it's YouTube, if it's from social media, you can go ahead and put that in the question. We'll go ahead and answer it live right here. But before we get started, I want to make sure we go around the horn and introduce ourselves because we have a lot of new people watching today. So, Lindsay, I'm going to go ahead and start with you. If you could just quickly introduce yourself.
Sure. Hi, everyone. This is Lindsay. I run our operations at our corporate office. So you'll probably be working with my team both through, application processing and then also on the transaction side.
Awesome. Patrick,
My
your
turn?
turn. Yeah.
Well, hello, everyone. My name is Patrick Howard. I'm one of the managing directors with Trio, and I work with both Aaron and Lindsay very closely. A lot of focus with our government partners as well, and manage most of the transaction activity in terms of our pipeline and our just loan docs and all that good stuff. So pricing out your lease payments and all of it. So it's great to have you here today. It's been a while, like Aaron said, and looking forward to today's show.
Yeah. And for everyone joining, these two are being very modest. So all the transactions, they're going to go through these two folks right here, right? So this is why we have them on this particular Trio Talk to make sure that you are actually asking the experts on these things, and we're kind of going over it today. So here's what we're going to talk about today. We're going to first talk about my customer's approved. Now what? It's an actual email I got the other day. Okay. Number two, now that you do have your approval letter, maybe we should go shopping. Let's go shopping. We'll kind of review that real quick, what those guidelines are and the policies on that. And number three, the most important one, now that you've found the right house, how do I write a Trio contract? How does that work out? Okay. So let's go ahead and start with number one. My customer's approved. Now what? Okay. There's a couple things that we need to do, right? So the first one that we want to make sure we do is make sure that you've signed the release or have your customer sign the release form. This is a really important one. And Lindsay, can you kind of go over why do we need to have the customer sign this release form?
Sure. Mainly the release form is the customer giving permission to us to talk to you about the details of their application. So if they have questions about why they were approved for the amount they were approved, if they have additional questions about how they can improve or increase the amount they were approved for, all of those more detailed questions are things that we can't share with you unless they give us permission to. So it's really just a great way for you to be synced into what's happening with that customer application and be better able to assist them. In our system, it also allows you to be CC'd on communications that go back and forth with the customer. So it's a great way for everybody to just stay on the same page to have that release signed and in our system.
Thanks, Lindsay. And remember, folks, up until this point, we don't know that the customer's working with you, right? So we're just not going to release their information out to anybody. So we just need to make sure that they give us permission to go ahead and do that. The second thing to go ahead and do is to submit your referral, right? And we'll kind of go over how to do both these things here in just the next couple slides. But the third thing that we also want to make sure we do is know the approval amount. This is a question that we've kind of been getting lately. The customer's getting an approval letter. How do we go ahead and convert that into whatever their purchase power is on that house or on that particular transaction with Trio? So let's go ahead and start with the release form, right? Well, Lindsay, you just kind of already said right there, but why don't you kind of go over the two ways somebody can go ahead and submit that referral there, or that release form, excuse me.
Yeah, sure. Our customer can do that right in that application when they first apply. It's a change we made probably about midway last year, based on feedback that we received, was that the customer should be able to authorize you right on the application before they submit it in. That way you're even copied on their confirmation email, which holds some critical information that you'll need going forward in the system as well. So it's great that way you can track it right from the very beginning. But if they don't do it within their application before they submit it, there are links in our resources pages on our website to fill it out, or they can log into their portal on thinktrio.com and fill it out from there as well. So a bunch of different ways to get it done, all in different kind of spots within the transaction or within the processing timing. So whatever's going to work for that customer, they can do it anytime.
And this is a great reason why, if you can help the customer with the application, right, this ensures that your name's on there and that, right, and just so you know, it's right at the beginning. It's question number 2 on the customer application. Are you working with an agent? Are you working with a lender? If so, let us know who that is. So if you want to make sure that, you're being CC'd on that communication, it's right there, right at the very beginning of that application. Cool. Thanks, Lindsay. Let's go ahead and go over the referral. How does a customer submit a referral? I'm going to pick on you again, Lindsay. I know this is more a lot of your area here. So how does a customer or an agent, excuse me, and a lender, how do they submit a referral to Trio?
Yeah, all good. So on trioresidential.com at the very top right, there is refer a client button in blue. And so that is the place to go ahead and log your referral. You will need the customer's information, of course, first and last name, right? And you will also need their confirmation ID, their application ID that comes from them submitting their application. So again, another reason why it's helpful to have your customer fill out their release with their application is you're then CC'd on the confirmation email that has that ID already in it. You don't have to backtrack and go back to your customer, follow up with them to get that ID if they complete it at the very beginning.
Perfect. And yeah, that correct name on the application is good, right? People sometimes go by a nickname. My dad goes by his middle name, right? There can be juniors and seniors and nicknames. So we just want to make sure that however they've put it on the application, right? That's how you're submitting it to us,
exactly.
Right? So cool. All right. Well, let's move on. Let's go ahead and move on to the next section. I have my monthly approval, and this is a question we get all the time. My customer has the monthly approval. I have this now, but how do I find the approved purchase price, right? I have a monthly amount, but I'm used to getting, an amount that says 400,000 or 300,000, right? Mm-hmm. How do I go ahead and calculate that? Who wants to go ahead and take that one over?
Lindsay does.
Oh man, you guys. All right. Well, that's
just remember good. He wanted you on this call, so now we know why, right?
Wow. All right.
Good
thing I had my coffee and my Wheaties this morning. So
I'm delegating.
Yeah, I see that. No, all good. So on our website and then also on our mobile app, you can download to any smartphone, we have a set of calculators that allow you to put in a lease payment, which is what the customer's pre-approval is going to show. And it estimates a home price or a purchase price for that lease payment. And so within those calculators too, though, something important to note is that there are adjusters for property taxes, and there are also adjusters for HOA. So you do kind of have to look at it as a range, because depending on the property taxes and the homeowners association dues for a particular area or neighborhood, that lease payment could be impacted and therefore impact the amount of buying power that the customer has. So it really is intended to be an estimator to provide you with a range of homes to look at, but also to be a tool that you're keeping with you as you're shopping with the customer. It's not something that you look at one time and then go out shopping and you don't look at it ever again, right? It's something to keep checking back, especially before you're making an offer on a property, is to review the specifics of that property and of that contract you're writing with that calculator in real time.
And one thing I'll add on the tax side of things, the property taxes, is that what we do when we price it out, when it gets to that stage, we're using your negotiated purchase price, and we're using the actual mill rate for the property in its tax jurisdiction. So what might be showing up in Zillow, if you will, as the property taxes are not necessarily accurate, or in terms of what the current owner has been paying if it's a older home or resale home. So that's based on an old value of whenever that home may have been purchased or last assessed. So we're actually using the new price and the current tax rate, mill rate, to come up with what the reality of the tax payment is going to be for the customer. So taking shortcuts around that is not helpful in the process of pricing for your customer. Trying to be as accurate as you possibly can. The real challenge comes on new construction, where we know there's a lag often, depending on what market you're in, and that's a little more challenging. Sometimes you have to do a little more homework to find out what that actual tax rate is, and if it's not just county but city, if there are any additional levies involved. Those things all have to be accounted for in terms of your pricing, if you will, for that home, the affordability of that home. So.
Perfect. Yeah. And the calculators that we have online, what does it default to?
1%.
1%, right? Mm-hmm. So those of you listening in Texas and California, right? So just know that.
I can tell you right now, in Texas, it's low, and you're going to have to adjust. In California, it depends if you have special assessments or not, but the base rate in California is 1%. So you just have to account for that. That's all.
I think everyone thinks that, whatever the property taxes in my county is the same in every other county, but it really can vary from county to county, just crossing county lines, and obviously definitely varies from state to state, right? Mm-hmm. So cool. All right. So that's a great question. Please take note of that one. Next question we have.
One thing I'll add on that is, this isn't anything different than a normal home purchase transaction.
It's totally different, Patrick.
For our agents out there, this is what you should be doing for your customer anyway, in terms of really knowing the affordability instead of setting your customer up for problems later because that work hasn't been done up front. So again, it's just a really important and tool of the trade and process that is in the customer's best interest. So anyway.
Perfect. Well, Patrick, I'm going to throw this one on over to you. What if the seller's agent is asking for Trio's approval letter? Obviously, we are giving the customer an approval letter, but they're not ultimately the buyer in the long run in this, right? And sometimes seller's agents are asking for Trio's approval letter. Is that possible?
Yeah. So we do, we give them an approval letter for financing for sure. Sometimes there are situations where the agent needs an additional letter from our lender. And so the ultimate lender. And so what we do is we're able to provide that additional letter, if you will, from who we're going to be using for our loan on the transaction. And so we can pass that through and show that that comes as a request through the agent. They'll put a request in, and then that generally will get tasked over to me as far as our internal process goes. And then I'll produce that letter for them. But more often than not, the Trio letter should be more than sufficient for your Trio, the approval letter, if you will, for the financing. Yeah.
Awesome. Well, you must be doing great.
Answer that sufficiently correct.
No, that was a perfect answer. No additions from me.
Well, clearly you guys are doing great. Those are great answers because we have no questions. So clearly everything is being
very thoroughly.
Absolutely.
I guess.
Succinct,
maybe,
right?
Hopefully.
Well, let's move on. Now that we do have the approval letter, let's talk about and just quickly review what kind of homes can somebody go ahead and buy with Trio. Patrick, I'm going to throw this one on over to you since we picked on Lindsay earlier.
A nice home. How's that?
Gotta qualify that, Patrick.
That's subjective.
Yeah. So first of all, any home that is going to be FHA approved, since we're using an FHA loan, so we'll finance, single family detached, condo, townhome, but especially on the condo and townhomes, those need to make sure that they are FHA project approval for financing. So that's for starters. Old and new, as you point out in the slide here, new construction for sure. That's easy. We love that. We think that's great for customers in terms of lower maintenance. And on older homes, we finance. We love those too. The requirement on those is they just have to go through an inspection, and that inspection needs to come back, relatively clean and with no major items. And when there are items on those inspections, we do ask that you order the inspections through BPG. There's a discount for using them. That's all in your portal in terms of the access to that code and form, and for outreach to BPG if you don't know them already. And then in terms of if there are items on that inspection that come back, then we ask you to go back to put together the addendum for the seller. We have our team here that will help with that and look through that and make sure that everything you've identified are what we feel are necessary. So that's that part of it. And then in terms of renovations, we can use what's known as a FHA 203K loan, and so that provides for funds to be able to take care of improvements. Those transactions would typically you need to put a little more time into the transaction to allow the process to work on that. We do need to have an inspection, a special inspection for that, with bids that are coming back for our lender to be able to factor that into that particular loan type. But otherwise, so we can accommodate that. The most important thing in terms of home pricing is the FHA loan limit in your market area. So Trio, we will finance up to 3% over the FHA loan limit. Our website actually has the loan limits, including that 3%, so your max price in your area. If the home is priced higher than FHA loan limit plus 3%, and the customer chooses to still proceed with that, the customer will be required to cover that additional cost of the home out of pocket. So it's not that we won't finance it, it's just that we'll cap the amount that we'll finance, and then it would be up to the customer to do anything more than that if they chose and had the resources to do that. And then homes over $400,000 in price do include a 2% requirement of a 2% down payment from the customer. That does factor into their option price, so they're given full credit for that down payment. That is a requirement, though. It's only on those houses that are priced in higher than $400,000. And then in terms of approval markets, of course, we do have some limitations. We don't, we're not going to finance a house, out in the boondocks and the mountains that is just inaccessible for our maintenance crews to get out there. That are going to be tough to resell if somebody isn't able to complete their home buying journey with us. So that typical criteria is 50 miles, within 50 miles of an urban center. And so, typically we don't have any issues with that requirement, but there have been cases where people have presented us with something they're interested in financing where we've had to say we won't be able to do that for them. Again, exception to the rule, but those are Trio friendly homes, and it's a pretty generous, we don't restrict you to school districts or zip codes or anything of that nature. It's pretty open, and like the title of Aaron's slide says, friendly, and just use your best judgment. We're not gonna finance a dilapidated house for somebody. It's just that's not gonna fly. So we do want people to have to succeed in their quest for home ownership, and so we want a house that is going to be long lasting and lower maintenance for them, and something that's going to allow them to succeed in their Trio venture. So,
hey Patrick,
Lindsay,
can I ask a quick question?
Yeah.
Patrick, about the renovation, the 203K, what does that include? I'm just assuming this means Chip and Joanna come into the house and totally redo it, right? No.
So let's say that a new roof needed to be put on or something. Generally speaking, Aaron, it's going to be, renovations, by and large, they're not going to exceed, say, $30,000. And so by and large, there's exceptions. but those higher amounts would take longer. So, but things like replacing a roof or doing some other needed maintenance that the seller won't address going in, that you want to take care of
Plumbing,
now
electrical,
as opposed to doing it
right.
later. Yeah. So
okay. Hey, we actually have a couple questions here, and it kind of leads me to my next slide, but I want to make sure we get to these questions here real quick. We have one here from Trisha. Oops, sorry, Patrick is covering you up there. Trisha asks, can someone buy a full duplex so they can rent out the other side? I want to throw this one on over to you, Lindsay.
So unfortunately, while you're in your trio lease, you cannot rent out a room or any portion. You can't rent out the house or, a portion of the house. It's strictly prohibited in our lease agreement. Our program is intended to be for, primary residence homeownership program. So technically duplexes are eligible for trio, but we would have to get two different, trio families, or you'd have to cover the payment on the whole thing. You cannot rent it out.
Thanks so much for asking, Trisha. We have one of our newest agents in one of our newest states in Tennessee, Lindera, asking question, what if they are currently Section 8 clients and they want to buy a home? Can Trio help this type of client? I'm going to go, well, I see Patrick nodding his head over the little thing there. So I'm going to ask you, Patrick, if you can.
Most definitely. We can work with a Section 8 client. I think the challenge that you're going to have with them is just making sure that the home price is something that is supportable with their payment and their income, including the Section 8 certificate. So, but yes, we definitely can work with that, and our government partners, love it when we're able to work with customers that have a Section 8 voucher. So.
Sure, and I'll just add to that too. It's the entity that's issuing the Section 8 voucher to make sure that rent to own qualifies as a home purchase for them to continue receiving that assistance. So it's one thing if they've been on Section 8, but they're planning to go off of Section 8 and just want to apply to our program versus actually using Section 8 still while in our leasing program.
Perfect. And we got a thumbs up from Lindera on that. So great question, Lindera. I love hearing that. All right, let's move on to the next slide, which is a question we often get. We're getting a lot of this from our new Texas agents out there. Are manufactured homes eligible for Trio? Lindsay, I want to ask you this one.
Sure, yeah. So manufactured homes are eligible. They do need to be on a permanent foundation that's verified by an engineer's certificate. So that includes, pier and beam or slab, a basement, some kind of permanent foundation that's on the property, not a mobile home that's just been affixed to land.
Perfect. Oh, I actually have a follow-up question, Lindsay, to Lindera's first question about Section 8. She asks, who do I get to start this process?
For an application, or I guess I need a little clarification.
Yeah, Lindera, if you can provide a little bit more on that. What are you talking about for the application for the Trio customer or for Section 8 and making sure that works out? Let us know. We'll go ahead and answer that for you, okay? All right, let's move on to the next section here. Oh, this one's an important one. Also getting this quite a bit from our new Texas agents out there. Can my customer just purchase land and build on it later? Patrick, this one's for you.
No is the short answer. So, yeah.
Wow. Okay.
Lindsay can expand on that, but yeah, the short answer is no. I mean, yeah.
Yep. So if they were to do that, right, it would be they would be purchasing they would already own the land, and then they would essentially be trying to take out a construction loan later, which is a different type of loan than what we're doing through our FHA 203B loan. So we do require for it all to be in one transaction, preferably from a reputable builder that's taking care of that work.
Gotcha. Perfect.
Yeah, I think that the counter to that, the addition to that is just that we can be the takeout for them. So if they can have other financing to arrange for, that construction, we can gladly, based on the home value and the price, we can provide that that letter of assurance on they've been approved for financing, that, we would come in and finance that completed house for them when it's ready. So.
Perfect. Patrick, I got another question for you. This one's from Trisha. She asks, if a house has solar, can it still be bought?
It can, but we want to see if what that lease and the provisions are in that lease for the solar. So that's an important piece on there. If it's in a first lien, it's going to be a problem. But you just have to make sure we get a copy of that to be able to confirm that that lease is not going to interfere with our financing on the FHA mortgage.
Perfect. Thank you. All right. Let's move on to the last section, and this one's really important. And Lindsay, I'm going to pick on you on this one. How to write a TRIO contract. So when I sent out a poll on the Facebook group, this was the #1 requested thing. And the reason why we've done everything before that is to make sure that you know everything leading up to this, right, and answering all these questions. But Lindsay, can you kind of go over how this works right here?
Sure. So TRIO doesn't have a particular contract that you need to use. We don't have our own set of forms. You're using your standard realtor forms that you would use otherwise for any other offer you're writing up. Sometimes builders require their forms, and that's okay too. We can work with that. But you're writing that offer, most importantly, in the customer's name initially. So you're reviewing the terms with them. You're negotiating with the listing agent directly. And having them sign off on the contract, which is why the second piece is so important, right? On our website, on trioresidential.com, is a copy of our assignment addendum that will later in the contract change over the buyer from the customer's name to our designated buyer's name in order to close the transaction. But until that's done, the customer is doing everything, right? So they're signing off on the contract, they're helping you, and you're reviewing the negotiations with them. They are depositing earnest money. They are ordering and paying for the inspection. So that first portion is all, the customer's responsibility and their actions. Once they've signed their lease with us, then we take over through the assignment addendum as the buyer. And that's really where we take over. And then any addendums after that would come to us to sign off on as the buyer. And we handle that through closing. It is important in your offer too to include that it has a FHA mortgage attached to it, right? We're not a cash offer. So it's important to include that third-party financing addendum and note that it's for FHA. And to make sure that you're including an appraisal contingency, because all of our contracts are going to require an appraisal to come in for FHA. Closing costs is something we get a question on all the time, right? And there's a couple of different options. The best case scenario, right, is that the seller offers a concession to the customer. TRIO requires a 3% concession on closing costs on all contracts. It doesn't necessarily have to come from the seller, but it's best for our customer, right, if it is coming from the seller so that they don't have to come out of pocket for it. If the seller is not providing anything or isn't providing the full 3%, then the difference has to be made up by the customer, and they can do that one of two ways. They can either pay for it upfront in full when they're signing their lease with us, or they can ask us to finance, and we can finance up to 2% of that over their lease term. So that would just be an additional amount that they're paying to us along with their lease payment, and it's an addendum to their lease in the form of a promissory note financing for those closing costs. We do ask that you also have a, what we call TRIO friendly, right, title and escrow group. Most of the time it's going to be Fidelity or First American, those big companies we work with all the time. But we can work with, if a seller is just really insisting on using their title company, we can try to work it out and provide them with our escrow instructions, provide them with our entity docs so that they can review that. But keep in mind that if it's not a company that's familiar with how we close and familiar with our documentation, it might cause a little bit of extra time on the transaction trying to get that figured out. So we try to get it taken care of as early on in the process as we possibly can, but it might cause a hiccup or two in order to get that kind of squared away for a smoother closing. And then kind of the final piece, right, is we require a home warranty on all of our contracts. Of course, again, similar to the closing costs, it's great if the seller can pay for it. If they don't, then we just wrap it into the financing. But we do require that to be with Fidelity.
Yeah. And hey, Aaron, one thing I'll add, because Lindsay covered it all perfectly. On the assignment addendum, there is an opportunity if you don't want to or feel that that's problematic for whatever reason, to include a separate piece of paper as an addendum, which is you can pull off our website, as Lindsay said. You can copy the 3 items that we require the language in that addendum, and you can copy that in and write it into your standard MLS form, versus having a separate piece of paper as our addendum. So that's an option for you if if you think you need to do it that way. So
perfect.
Yeah.
And Lindsay, I know you already answer this, but I just want to make sure does the customer put up the earnest money? And I know you had put that in your email this morning as well. So I want to throw it back on over to you about this.
Yeah, sure. So the customer does pay the earnest money, right? Contract is in their name, so earnest money deposit needs to come from them to title. They do get a credit from Trio off of their lease signing fees for that earnest money that they paid in. So it's not money that they pay and it just disappears. They do get a credit for us and off of their lease signing. So they'll see that when we send out their pricing, we send that out and we show where they've been credited for those funds.
Perfect. And Patrick, I'm going to throw this one on over to you. Who pays for the home inspection?
Yeah, it's the same. The customer is paying for the home inspection, because remember, where that's happening in the transaction process is you're ordering that inspection virtually, the same day, if not the day after you've gotten your customer under contract with the seller. Then you're ordering the inspection. On new construction, this isn't an issue. You don't have to order that inspection, but on any non-new construction, you do. So the customer will pay for that inspection immediately, as soon as that's ordered. So that's the case. Now, if there's a need later on for an additional inspection after we've taken over and started the process with our lender, and the lender has ordered an appraisal, lender always orders the appraisal in our transactions under an FHA loan. So there's no appraisal ordered by the customer up front. It doesn't happen until we've taken it and submitted that file to our lender and the customers signed their lease at that point. So then when our lender orders the appraisal, if the appraisal cites something in their report that requires an additional inspection, then we would cover it at that point in the transaction process cycle. So
perfect. No, I was actually just going to ask about the appraisal as well. So thanks for covering that. Yeah. So folks, if there's something that we didn't cover today, or you need a little bit more clarification, don't hesitate to email us, info@thinktrio.com, or call 855-USE-TRIO. We often get the question, where are those emails? I can't remember what the email address is or anything like that. It's all on our website. It's right there up at the top, so you can find it really easily. And it's usually in our email signatures as well. So you'll definitely see that. Patrick, I do have a question here from Martin, who I think is probably living and working in the southeast part of the region. So I'm not sure how much you can say here, but he's asking, when is this going to be available in North Carolina and Florida?
Well, we hope very soon, within the coming, next, say 2 or 3, 4 months from now. So we're working hard to try to open up those areas for you here in 2021 still. And as soon as those markets are eligible for financing with us, you will hear from Aaron most definitely. So,
and can you just quickly, why does it take so long for us to be up and running in a place? What do we have to do? And I guess it's more about the partnerships that people don't quite realize that are happening. Yeah,
it's all about our partnerships in terms of our jurisdictional boundaries, if you will, and it's just our agreements. So we have a purpose in terms of how we operate our program and in what jurisdiction, and jurisdiction meaning what state. And so that's just part of the process. Instead of just turning on the faucet and just having it be so chaotic in applications all over the country, we try to really manage our progression in terms of rollout of from state to state. And we do that in conjunction with our partners that we have for the program. So I can assure you that we're working super hard to bring North Carolina and Florida online and be able to turn that that block green on our map on our website, and it's coming, and it's going to be here sooner than not. Hopefully this summer still.
And you were just back there, obviously, trying to make sure that happens. So
I was, yeah,
super important. So, well, folks, thanks so much for joining me, Patrick, Lindsay. Awesome as always. Thank you so much. Super helpful. Folks, I hope you got a lot out of this. We'll be putting more polls in the Facebook group to ask you, what do you want us to cover next? Because these are areas where we're here to help you out and to, answer your questions. And remember, if you are fuzzy and you can't wait for the next Trio Talk, don't hesitate to give us a call. Email us info@thinktrio.com. You'll get answered that day. All right. That's it. We're done.
All right.
Good job, everybody.
Thanks, everyone.
All right.
All right.
Have
well,
a
thanks.
wonderful day. Take care.
Okay. Thanks, Aaron.
Thanks
Thanks,
very
Lindsay.
much. Thank
Bye.
you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.